You know that feeling, right? When you're just completely torn over a decision? There's a part of you that wants to leap, but then another part just screams no. It feels like a war is just raging inside your head. Well, today, we're going to look at that whole internal conflict in a completely new way. It's that classic pull, being yanked in two different directions at once. Should you take the new job? Should you finally have that difficult conversation? Maybe it's about starting that huge creative project you've been dreaming about. Look, this inner struggle is totally universal. And understanding its structure, well, that's the first step to making much better decisions. All right, so let's dive into this. I want you to imagine something. Your mind isn't a battlefield, it's a courtroom. And for every single major decision you face, a trial is in session, right now. There are lawyers arguing their cases, and a jury is listening intently. The verdict they reach, it's literally going to determine the course of your life. So, let's meet the key players.
First up, we have the prosecutor. This is that voice inside you, the one that says, here's why we must. It's the architect of desire, the real engine of change. It's the part of you that sees a better future and wants to get there like yesterday.
Now, what's really crucial to understand here is that the prosecutor's currency is potential. It gathers up all the evidence, emotions, memories, bits of logic to argue against just staying put. A strong prosecutor is absolutely essential for any kind of growth. I mean, without it, we'd never leave the comfort of the status quo. But this voice has two very, very different faces. And this is where it gets really interesting. On one hand, you have the noble prosecutor. This is your ambition. This is the voice saying, hey, you're a writer. You have to write that novel. But then you've got the base prosecutor, and that's just raw appetite. That's the voice arguing for, a third glass of wine by creating this completely false sense of urgency, saying, you deserve this right now. And this is the closing argument of the noble prosecutor. It's powerful, it's inspiring, and it taps directly into our sense of self, our identity. It frames doing nothing not as being safe, but as a deep and personal betrayal of the person we could become. Of course, that's only one side of the argument. Every good prosecutor needs a formidable opponent, so meet the defense attorney. This is the voice of caution, of conservation, the voice of here's why we must not. It's the guardian of your current reality. Its main job isn't just to be negative, it's to be protective. I want you to think of it as the immune system for your life, constantly scanning for threats, for risks, for all the holes in the prosecutor's big, passionate case. But just like the prosecutor, the defense has two very distinct modes of operation. So there's the prudent defense. This is your wisdom. It doesn't want to kill the dream of starting a business. No, it wants to poke holes in the business plan to make it stronger, to make it more sustainable. But then you have the paranoid defense. This one operates from a place of trauma and anxiety. It doesn't refine the case, it tries to completely annihilate it. And this is that chilling whisper of the paranoid defense. It doesn't just identify a risk, it catastrophizes it. It takes one small possibility of failure and blows it up into an absolute certainty of complete and utter ruin. This voice is aiming for a perpetual mistrial, just to keep you locked in the safety of doing nothing. So, we've got the passionate prosecutor and the cautious defense. They've both made their case, but who delivers the final verdict? Well, this brings us to the most mysterious and honestly the most powerful actor in the whole court, the jury. The jury is not your logical mind. It's way deeper than that. This is the seat of your soul, your core values, your gut instinct. It doesn't argue, it doesn't analyze spreadsheets, it simply listens. It listens to both sides and weighs their arguments against a totally different kind of evidence. So what kind of evidence does the jury consider? It really looks at three things. First, identity. It asks, is this action in line with who I truly believe I am? Second, coherence. Does this choice help create a more meaningful life story? And finally, the unspoken cost. The jury can actually feel the spiritual price of a decision, like that slow death of the soul that comes from always playing it safe. And this brings us to a really key insight. A wise jury doesn't just pick a winner. It seeks convergence. It's trying to find a verdict that honors the passion and energy of the prosecutor, but also respects the wisdom of the prudent defense. The verdict might sound something like, yes, we are going to write the novel, but we're going to do it with the more realistic schedule that the defense suggested. So how do we actually use this model? How do we become a better judge in our own internal court? It really all comes down to recognizing these voices and understanding the process. Here's the flow. It's pretty simple. First, you let the prosecutor make its passionate case for change. Let it have the floor. Then, you allow the defense to cross-examine those plans, pointing out the real, actual risks. And finally, and this is the most important part, you give the jury, your deepest self, the time and the silence it needs to weigh everything and just deliberate. And this is what we have to remember. Every choice, every single verdict delivered in this internal court, it's not just about what you're going to do. It is a profound statement about who you are and who you are actively choosing to become. Ultimately, this is the one question the jury answers. It's not, what's the most logical choice or what's the safest option? The question is, what does my soul require of me right now in this moment? Learning to listen for that answer, that is the absolute key to navigating this internal court and living a life that is truly your own.